close your eyes and imagine this. Moscow, 1570. The air smells of candle wax and old parchment. A bitter winter wind howls outside the Kremlin walls, while deep within its shadowy corridors, Ivan the Terrible paces before shelves stacked with books so rare their very existence was considered dangerous. Now, I know what you're thinking. A bookworm czar? How terrifying could that be? Oh, my sweet summer child, you wouldn't last 5 minutes in Ivan's study. This was a man who collected knowledge like some people collect decorative spoons. Except his methods involved more persuasive negotiations. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there. Nothing creepy, just for science. Now, let's listen to the story. The Lost Library of Ivan the Terrible wasn't just some random pile of books. We're talking about a collection that allegedly held ancient Greek scrolls, forbidden alchemical texts, and possibly even manuscripts from the Library of Alexandria itself. Historians still argue whether it ever existed at all, but here's the fun part. Ivan definitely believed it did. Picture this. A paranoid ruler, convinced enemies lurk in every shadow, hoarding books like they're the last snacks at a medieval party. And not just any books. Some were said to contain secrets powerful enough to rewrite history. Of course, Ivan being Ivan, he wasn't about to share. So when he died in 1584, the library vanished. Poof. Like a medieval Netflix subscription that got canceled mid-binge. But here's where it gets weird. In 1571, Moscow burned. Aha, you say. The library went up in flames. Except not so fast. Because Ivan, ever the drama king, had a habit of hiding things before disasters struck. And, according to a 16th century diplomat's diary, the Tsar once bragged that his most precious books were stored where no flame could touch them. Suspicious, no? Now, let's talk about the man himself. Ivan didn't earn his nickname by being a present literature enthusiast. When he wasn't inventing new forms of taxation, he was dispatching agents across Europe to acquire texts. One account claims he once traded an entire city for a single book. And yet, for all his efforts, the library disappeared without a trace. Was it stolen, hidden, or, as some whisper, cursed? We'll get to that. But first, let's talk about the librarian who knew too much. Ivan IV wasn't called terrible because he forgot to return library books. No, this was a man whose love for knowledge came with complications. Imagine a medieval book collector, except instead of bidding at auctions, he sent armed men to convince owners to part with their precious manuscripts. The Tsar's obsession began in childhood. Orphaned at 8, young Ivan found solace in books while Boyar schemed around him. By adulthood, he developed a particular taste for forbidden knowledge, alchemical treatises, heretical texts, anything that might give him an edge. His agents scoured monasteries from Novgorod to Constantinople, employing what we'll politely call aggressive acquisition strategies. One particularly stubborn monk in Pskov refused to sell his illuminated Psalter. 3 days later, the monastery mysteriously burned down. The Psalter? Safely relocated to Moscow. Coincidence? Historians note Ivan had an uncanny number of coincidences like this. His most infamous haul came after conquering Kazan in 1552. The Khan's library contained Arabic manuscripts on astronomy, medicine, and, most tantalizing, maps of secret trade routes to the east. These became the crown jewels of his collection, guarded more closely than the royal treasury itself. But here's the twist. Ivan didn't just want to own these books, he wanted to understand them. He established Russia's first printing press in 1563, though his scribes worked under intense supervision. One translator who made too many mistakes was reportedly sewn into a bearskin and thrown to hunting dogs. Talk about harsh peer review. The collection grew so vast that foreign ambassadors wrote of entire Kremlin chambers, filled floor to ceiling with books. Yet curiously, after Ivan's death, only a fraction remained. So what happened to the rest? That's where our story takes a darker turn. Every great library needs a keeper, and Ivan's collection was no exception. Enter Feodoret, the most dangerous librarian in history. This wasn't some meek scholar shuffling parchment. Feodoret was Ivan's personal book guardian, a man who knew where every forbidden text was hidden and what happened to those who asked too many questions. Contemporary accounts described Feodoret as having eyes that missed nothing and a memory so precise he could recite entire manuscripts after a single reading. He developed an elaborate cataloging system using symbols only he understood. Some scholars believe these markings contained clues to the library's most dangerous secrets. The librarian's daily routine would terrify modern archivists. Each morning began with checking that every volume remained exactly where he left it. Missing books meant missing people. Ivan took library security very personally. Feodoret reportedly carried a poisoned quill at all times, though whether this was for taking notes or settling disputes remains debated. In 1575, something strange happened. Feodoret abruptly retired to a remote monastery, highly unusual for a man in his position. Even stranger, he arrived with no books, but immediately began writing his memoirs, which vanished after his death 3 months later. The abbot's note noted Feodoret's final words: "The knowledge is safe, but the price was too high." Modern researchers have pieced together tantalizing clues from Feodoret's surviving notes. He mentions a special collection kept in a separate, hidden chamber. More chilling are his references to the silent readers, a phrase that appears 17 times without explanation. Some theorists suggest this was code for Ivan's secret police, while others believe, well, we'll get to that theory later. One thing's certain, when Feodoret died, the library's true organizational system died with him. Within a generation, even the Kremlin's scholars couldn't navigate the collection properly. Was this intentional? A final act of protection from the loyal librarian? The answer might lie in those missing memoirs, or in the underground tunnels we'll explore next. Moscow burned in 1571. This much we know for certain. The Crimean Khan Devlet I Girais forces torched the city, leaving charred ruins where thriving neighborhoods once stood. But here's where history gets suspicious. While contemporary accounts describe the devastation in vivid detail, none mention the royal library burning, not one. For a collection supposedly containing thousands of priceless volumes, this silence is peculiar. Let's examine the timeline. The fire began at dawn on May 24th, spreading rapidly through the city's wooden structures. By midday, flames licked at the Kremlin walls, yet multiple sources note that Ivan had left Moscow weeks earlier, taking his most precious possessions to Alexandrovskoye Sloboda. Court records show an unusual number of heavy wagons making the journey, far more than needed for personal effects. The plot thickens when we examine the fire's aftermath. While inventory lists show significant losses in the royal armory and treasury, the palace's bookkeeping records from that period are conspicuously missing. Even stranger, a German merchant's diary from June 1571 mentions seeing black-robed men carrying sealed chests into the Kremlin's secret underground passages days before the fire. Historians remain divided. The traditional view maintains the library was indeed destroyed, but revisionist scholars point to a 1573 letter from Ivan to Queen Elizabeth I of England, where he boasts of possessing knowledge from ancient times no other Christian prince has seen. This would be an odd claim if his collection had burned 2 years prior. Perhaps most telling is what didn't burn. The Kremlin's cathedrals, built of stone, survived relatively intact. So did the extensive network of underground storage chambers beneath them. if you wanted to protect something precious from fire, well, you can see where this is leading. The mystery deepens when we consider who might have wanted the library gone or hidden. Which brings us to our next clue, the underground tunnels that snake beneath Red Square. Beneath Moscow's bustling streets lies another city, a labyrinth of tunnels, chambers, and secret passages that have protected and concealed Russia's secrets for centuries. It's here that our search for Ivan's library takes a fascinating turn, because if the collection survived the fires of 1571, these underground networks would have been the perfect hiding place. The Kremlin's subterranean world first entered historical records in the 12th century, but Ivan expanded it dramatically during his reign. Workers' logs show the excavation of new tunnels reaching depths of 40 meters, unusually deep for simple storage. Even today, archaeologists keep discovering new branches of this underground maze. In 1984, a maintenance worker stumbled upon a previously unknown chamber beneath the Arsenal Tower. Inside, researchers found 16th century candle holders still containing wax stubs, and something more intriguing, fragments of parchment with Ivan's personal seal. While the documents themselves had disintegrated, the discovery proved these tunnels were used to store important materials. But the most compelling evidence comes from a 1586 report by English diplomat Giles Fletcher. After being shown part of the Kremlin's underground system, he wrote of vaults so extensive a man might walk half a day without seeing daylight, containing chests of strange devices and books in diverse tongues. Fletcher's account specifically mentions Greek and Hebrew texts, exactly the types of works Ivan was known to collect. Modern ground-penetrating radar has revealed several large man-made voids beneath the oldest parts of the Kremlin. One particularly interesting anomaly lies directly beneath where Ivan's private study once stood, a chamber approximately 6 by 9 meters with what appears to be a ventilation shaft leading upward, the perfect size for a secret library. Of course, accessing these areas remains nearly impossible today. The tunnels are either flooded, collapsed, or considered too dangerous to explore. And as we'll see in our next section, some of those dangers might not be purely structural. In the archives of the Polish Royal Library sits a curious artifact, a 16th century map of Moscow with strange symbols scrawled in the margins. Discovered in 1843, this document has fueled centuries of speculation among treasure hunters. The markings match no known cipher of the period, yet bear an uncanny resemblance to symbols found in Fyodorit's personal journals. The map's most intriguing feature appears near the Kremlin's northeast wall, a series of 7 dots arranged in a pattern matching the Pleiades constellation, alongside what looks like a crude bookshelf drawn in iron gall ink. Polish historians confirm this map originated from a spy in Ivan's court, sent to King Stefan Batory during the Livonian War. Modern analysis reveals even more peculiar details. Under UV light, faint lines emerge connecting the dots to form what appears to be a tunnel system. Even more startling, the chemical composition of the ink matches samples taken from authenticated documents in Ivan's personal correspondence. Was the Tsar himself leaving clues? In 2017, a team from Moscow State University made a breakthrough. They noticed the symbols corresponded to specific feast days in the Orthodox calendar. When these dates were applied to measurements from the Kremlin's architecture, they pointed to a location beneath the Church of the Deposition of the Robe, one of the few buildings to survive the 1571 fire intact. The most tantalizing clue? A marginal note in Church Slavonic that translates to, "Knowledge walks underground." This phrase appears verbatim in one of Ivan's last letters to his son. Coincidence? Or was the paranoid Tsar creating a treasure map only his heirs could decipher? As we'll see next, these maps may explain the strange fate of the scholars who studied Ivan's collection and why so many of them disappeared without a trace. History remembers Ivan the Terrible's reign as a golden age for Russian scholarship, at least on the surface. Records show he invited Europe's brightest minds to Moscow, offering lavish salaries to study his collection. Yet of the 47 foreign scholars known to have entered Ivan's service, only 12 were ever accounted for after leaving Russia. Their disappearances follow a disturbing pattern. Take the case of Heinrich von Staden, a German mercenary turned scholar. In 1576, he published sensational memoirs describing his work cataloging Greek manuscripts in Ivan's library. Just months later, while traveling to Venice, his ship vanished in the Adriatic. A single page of his final journal washed ashore, containing a cryptic note: "The Tsar's books breathe like living things at night." Even more chilling is the fate of the Italian linguist Giovanni Battista della Volpe. After translating what he called certain problematic texts in 1569, he began exhibiting bizarre behavior, refusing to sleep near books, claiming they whispered to him. He was found dead in his chambers, his face frozen in terror, surrounded by piles of ash where his notes had been burned. The official cause? Melancholia. Russian scholars didn't fare better. The monk Arseny Gladsanov, tasked with copying religious texts from the collection, suddenly abandoned his monastery in 1573. He reappeared decades later as a wandering holy man, muttering about books that read their readers. When pressed for details, he would scream and claw at his own eyes. Modern researchers have identified one common thread. All the disappeared scholars had worked with materials from what Ivan called his special collection. The few surviving inventories mention these texts being stored separately in iron-bound chests with complex locking mechanisms. One notation suggests they were only to be handled while wearing gloves made from prepared sheepskin. What knowledge could have driven men mad? The answer may lie in our next section's examination of the library's most dangerous contents. Texts so controversial, their very existence was systematically erased from history. Among the scattered clues about Ivan's library, one consistent thread emerges: references to a special collection, so dangerous that even the Tsar himself reportedly feared its contents. Fragments of correspondence between Ivan and his librarians mention these texts being kept in a separate, sealed chamber, accessible only with the Tsar's personal key. The few surviving descriptions are chilling. A 1568 inventory mentions 7 books bound in black leather, their pages made not of parchment, but of an unknown material that resists both fire and blade. Another document references the Silver Codex that allegedly predicted events with unsettling accuracy, including Ivan's own mother's poisoning when he was just 8 years old. Most intriguing is the repeated mention of something called the Book of Shadows. According to a marginal note in Feodorit's journal, this volume contained knowledge from beyond the Urals, given as tribute by shamans who spoke with the earth itself. Modern scholars speculate this may have been an early compilation of Siberian folklore, or something far more esoteric. The nature of these texts explains Ivan's extreme secrecy. At a time when the church burned heretical works, possession of such materials could undermine his divine right to rule. Yet paradoxically, he couldn't bring himself to destroy them. Instead, he created what may have been history's first restricted access library, knowledge so dangerous it required royal permission to even glance at its covers. This obsessive protection raises an unsettling question. Did Ivan hide the library not just from others, but from himself? Contemporary accounts describe his increasingly erratic behavior in later years, how he would spend nights wandering the Kremlin's corridors, muttering about the voices in the books. Perhaps the greatest secret of Ivan's library isn't what it contained, but what it did to those who sought its knowledge. As we'll explore next, this dark legacy may explain why all subsequent searches for the collection have ended in tragedy. The 20th century saw numerous organized attempts to locate Ivan's vanished library, each ending under circumstances so bizarre they fueled whispers of a curse. In 1933, Soviet archaeologist Ignatiy Stiletsky led the first major excavation beneath the Kremlin. After discovering a hidden passage near the armory, His entire team fell violently ill overnight. Stiletsky alone recovered, but spent his final years warning that some knowledge should remain buried. More recently, in 1997, a team using ground-penetrating radar located what appeared to be a sealed chamber beneath the Tainichki Tower. As they prepared to drill an exploratory borehole, their equipment inexplicably failed. Subsequent attempts met with identical results, leading engineers to joke darkly about the Kremlin's anti-book force field. The pattern extends beyond professional archaeologists. In 2014, urban explorer Dmitry Volkov entered Moscow's underground river system seeking library clues. He emerged 3 days later babbling about books that weren't meant for human eyes, before vanishing completely. His camera was recovered, its final photos showing nothing but blurred darkness, except for one frame containing what appears to be a human hand pressed against the lens from inside the tunnel wall. Even digital investigations have met strange resistance. In 2020, a university team attempting to digitally reconstruct the library's possible contents suffered a catastrophic server failure. The backup drives showed evidence of extreme heat damage, despite never leaving their climate-controlled facility. These incidents raise disturbing questions. Is the library actively resisting discovery? Or are we seeing the modern manifestation of whatever force made Ivan hide it so thoroughly? As we'll explore in our final sections, the answer may lie in understanding why the Russian government has alternately funded searches and abruptly shut them down for centuries.
For over 400 years, Russia's rulers have maintained a curious relationship with Ivan's lost library, alternating between funding lavish searches and abruptly suppressing all investigation. Catherine the Great commissioned secret excavations in 1786, only to halt them after workers uncovered a chamber containing something that made her personally burn the expedition records. Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev reportedly kept a file on the library's possible location, marked "Not for Our Lifetime" in red ink. Modern researchers have pieced together a startling pattern. Every major search has been terminated within days of reaching promising discoveries. In 1991, just as Boris Yeltsin's team was preparing to explore a newly discovered tunnel beneath Senate Square, the project was reassigned to the FSB without explanation. The official report claims they found nothing, but the lead archaeologist was quietly given a dacha and early pension. Declassified documents reveal even stranger details. A 1974 KGB memo references special storage procedures for any recovered materials from the Tsar's collection, including mandatory lead-lined containers and no direct visual contact. More recently, a 2016 Kremlin budget line item showed substantial funding for historical document preservation alongside allocations to the same scientific institute that handles Russia's nuclear archives. The most compelling evidence comes from former state archivist Pyotr Zadornov, who in a 2003 interview claimed to have seen a secure vault containing books matching Ivan's descriptions. When pressed for details, he suddenly changed the subject. 2 weeks later, Zadornov died in a car accident so perfectly timed, even the investigating officers called it statistically improbable. This raises an uncomfortable possibility that the library has been found and deliberately kept hidden. The question is why? Are the texts truly dangerous? Or do their content threaten some carefully constructed historical narrative? As we'll see in our final sections, the answer may be more disturbing than we imagined. Among contemporary researchers, a radical hypothesis is gaining traction: that Ivan's library was never meant to be a static collection of books, but something far more dynamic. Professor Elena Volkova of St. Petersburg University has analyzed centuries of fragmentary accounts and proposed a startling conclusion. The library may have been an elaborate knowledge preservation system with living scholars as its true repositories. Volkova's research focuses on Ivan's mysterious memory palaces, a network of isolated monasteries where groups of monks were tasked with memorizing specific texts verbatim. Historical records show these monks underwent rigorous mnemonic training, with some said to recite entire volumes flawlessly after a single reading. Intriguingly, several such monasteries were built along ley lines, ancient energy pathways that some believe enhance mental faculties. The theory suggests that when danger threatened, key texts weren't moved, they were memorized. This would explain why Ivan's personal guard included reader warriors, elite soldiers trained in advanced memorization techniques. A 1577 dispatch from the English ambassador describes witnessing one such warrior recite a 3-hour epic poem after being shown just its first line. Most chilling is Volkova's analysis of the monks' fates. Church records show clusters of unexplained deaths occurring simultaneously across these monasteries in 1584, the year of Ivan's death. Autopsy reports from exhumed remains reveal unusual brain abnormalities, with some skulls showing precise perforations that modern neurosurgeons compared to trepanation but performed with impossible accuracy. If true, this transforms our understanding of the library's disappearance. The books may have been deliberately destroyed once their contents were safely stored in human minds, a living, breathing archive that walked out of history unnoticed. The implications are staggering. Could descendants of these memory keepers still exist today, carrying forgotten knowledge in their very DNA? Our final sections will examine what this means for the modern search and why recent breakthroughs in neuroscience may finally unlock the library's last secrets. Cutting-edge neuroscience may finally provide the key to unlocking Ivan's greatest secret. In 2021, a team at Moscow's Institute of Brain Research made an accidental discovery while studying hereditary memory patterns. Certain subjects from remote Russian villages demonstrated extraordinary recall of historical events they'd never studied, including precise details matching lost texts from Ivan's era. Dr. Kirill Sokolov's controversial experiments reveal these individuals share a unique genetic marker, one that traces back to communities near Ivan's memory monasteries. When shown fragments of recovered 16th century documents, their pupils dilate abnormally, and some begin reciting complete passages in archaic Church Slavonic, despite having no prior knowledge of the language. The phenomenon appears strongest during specific lunar phases, suggesting the memories might be epigenetically triggered by environmental factors. Even more astonishing, brain scans show these spontaneous recollections activate neural pathways typically associated with muscle memory, as if the information was physically imprinted in their nervous systems. This research takes a darker turn when examining the subject's family histories. Many descend from lines of rememberers, village wise men who traditionally served as living archives. Local folklore speaks of an initiation ritual called the drinking of letters, where adolescents consumed a special ink solution while memorizing texts. Modern chemical analysis of preserved recipes reveal these inks contained neuroactive compounds derived from Siberian mushrooms. The implications are profound. We may have been searching in the wrong places all along. The library wasn't hidden in tunnels or chambers, it was encoded in human DNA, passed down through generations like a biological time capsule. As we approach our final revelations, we must ask, is this why the library has never been found? Because it's been walking among us all along? In the past decade, something strange has been happening across rural Russia. Elderly villagers, many with no formal education, have begun speaking in tongues, reciting texts that match known fragments of Ivan's lost collection. Some wake from vivid dreams, quoting entire pages of forgotten manuscripts. Others, under hypnosis, describe libraries they've never seen, shelves lined with books they somehow remember. The phenomenon follows a disturbing pattern. These rememberers often fall ill shortly after their memories surface. Migraines, nosebleeds, temporary blindness. A few have even vanished entirely. In 2019, a retired school teacher in Kostroma transcribed 12 pages of an unknown medieval herbal before her home burned down. The fire left her notebooks untouched. Neurologists studying the cases note an eerie similarity in brain scans, heightened activity in the hippocampus, the region responsible for memory, alongside unexplained scarring in the prefrontal cortex, as if the mind itself is resisting the retrieval of forbidden knowledge. The Kremlin's response has been unusual. In 2020, a secretive federal program began offering free DNA testing in remote villages. Those who participated later reported visits from historians, asking peculiar questions about family legends. Some families were quietly relocated. A leaked memo referenced containment protocols for mnemonic anomalies. Most chilling of all, several rememberers have described the same missing text, a book bound in black leather, its pages allegedly made from human skin. They call it the Breath of the Tsar, and according to them, it's not just a book, it's waking up. Our final section will reveal why the past refuses to stay buried and what happens when history remembers back.
The more we uncover about Ivan's library, the clearer it becomes. We're not just dealing with lost books. We're dealing with something that wants to be found. In 2022, a team of linguists in Kazan Federal University made a breakthrough. By cross-referencing the fragmented memories of rememberers, they reconstructed partial passages from the Breath of the Tsar. The text wasn't written in any known language, but when spoken aloud, it produced measurable physiological effects. Test subjects experienced synchronized heart rate fluctuations, identical dream imagery, and in 3 cases, temporary aphasia. The university shut down the project after lead researcher Dr. Petrov was found catatonic in his office. His hands froze in mid-gesture, as if holding something invisible. Meanwhile, reports from rural Russia grow stranger. Villagers describe nightmares of a library that walks, a procession of shadowy figures carrying books that whisper. Security footage from a monastery near Suzdal captured what appears to be a phantom reading room materializing in the cloisters at dawn, its shelves stocked with volumes that dissolve when approached. The Kremlin's silence speaks volumes. In March 2023, Patriarch Kirill unexpectedly consecrated a new chapel over an unmarked vault beneath the Dormition Cathedral, a location matching 16th century descriptions of Ivan's final repository. When pressed, church officials called it a spiritual quarantine. Which brings us to the unavoidable question: what did Ivan actually collect? Not just books, but living words, texts that reshape their readers, ideas that outlive their authors. Perhaps the library was never lost. Perhaps it's been curating itself all along, editing history by choosing who remembers what. As we approach our final revelation, consider this. You're hearing this story because the library allows it. Some doors stay closed for a reason. Every legend warns of a price for forbidden knowledge, but what if the knowledge itself demands payment? The surviving rememberers share one final clue. Ivan didn't die naturally in 1584. He was retrieved. Their fragmented accounts describe a midnight procession of robed figures carrying the Tsar's body into the Kremlin's depths where the books took back what they lent. Modern scans of Ivan's tomb reveal anomalies. The skeletal posture suggests rearrangement after burial. The skull cavity shows unusual erosion patterns consistent with advanced neurodegeneration. Perhaps this explains the library's persistence. Not a collection, but a custodian, an intelligence preserving itself across centuries through human memory, paper, and now digital echoes. It selects its keepers carefully. Fyodorit didn't just catalog books, he negotiated with them. The missing scholars didn't vanish, they were archived. So where does this leave us? The evidence suggests we're not searching for Ivan's library. It's searching for us. Each retelling of this story becomes another shelf in its growing collection. Each listener, yes, you, now carries a fragment forward. The final irony: this isn't a mystery to be solved. It's an invitation. Some stories want to be told. Some books choose their readers. As the rememberers whisper, the library finds you when you're ready. So sleep well tonight, but pay attention to your dreams. And if you wake with unfamiliar words on your tongue, welcome to the collection. Thank you for listening.